Uh-oh. Attack dogs. We're live. It is 6:15. Tonight we're going to talk about a photo that somebody sent me and actually offered to send over the part, which is fairly cool. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about so you guys know if you haven't seen the thumbnail. I'll show this again, but it's this. Pretty cool. Allows the this one that he made allows installation of a two-barrel intake two-barrel carburetor on a factory truck style intake manifold. And given that that's a 3-bolt, obviously it probably would work on other LS intake manifolds that share that throttle body, like the LS1, LS6. It probably would work on those as well. But pretty cool. So what? I'm trying to think what did he call this thing? An elbow ram. That's right. Snorkel ram, whatever you guys want to think about it. It's pretty cool. Now, I tried something similar way back. We put together a deal. I made an adapter to put a 4-barrel on it, and I didn't have too good of luck with it. It didn't want to run very well. But I think part of the problem was the adapter itself. Like, I like his design. The tube is a lot longer, and I think that will give a better signal to the carburetor. So I'd like to try it again. So our poll for tonight will be in front of intake. Okay, so the poll for tonight will be, should I try to run a carb in front of the factory EFI truck intake manifold on the dyno? Should I try to make that happen again? I guess I should put again here. Again. Hey, nope. So, carbon front. Should I try to run a carbon front? What's that now? Okay. Should I try to run a carbon front of the factory EFI truck intake manifold on the dyno again? So let me know. That would be our poll for tonight. It's fairly cool. I like the. I mean, and it's fairly simple. The great things about these things like this are they're very simple. It's easy to do. It's tubing. It's 2 flanges. It's pretty easy to make. And so I think it should work. We've tried this a long version of this. The guys over on the chassis dyno shop way back when they were doing some truck racing, some off-road racing, had to run in this particular class, and we're trying to do that because the carburetor made more power, but they were trying to mount it, get it mounted under the hood, and so they were trying to configure it with a really long tube and try to get all that to work. The carburetor is definitely the way to go, but I want to try this and just to see if it will work, because it's a fairly simple gee whiz kind of thing. You know, we'll try it, and since it's easy to make, it's a couple of flanges. You know, it's a 4-hole flange on one side, and then the flange for the throttle body on the other side. Pretty simple. That's a couple of hole saws and a little bit of welding. It's not anything, you know, it's not anything terrible, not anything I can't throw together in an hour or two. So that'll be cool. I kind of would like to try that. And then I'm going to be going down to West Tech, and I'm going to run the AMR 500 blower. So we'll have data on that. I'm doing some other things while I'm down there. So we'll try some different cool things. I might even, if I can get the configuration right, might try to run a draw through turbo too. So it's all about the draw through carbureted stuff. So there's a theme here. So I kind of want to try that. So you guys let me know if I should try to run that and see. You know, it'd be interesting to see. The truck manifold is a terrible, convoluted catastrophe inside for fuel. And actually, I'm surprised after cutting the 1 1/2, and I have a photo and videos up of that. After I cut the 1 1/2 and opened it up and looked in there, having run nitrous through there and fuel and water methanol and all sorts of things, I'm surprised that it even works. I mean, I don't I don't know why they have this common tube with a side exit that goes into a common plenum and then into the runners, and all sorts of stuff can get lost and go in different directions and all sorts of things. But yet, that's why engineers know way more than I do about these things. And obviously it works fairly well. We've run lots of boosts through them. We've run all kinds of things, and they work well. I just don't like to run big shots of nitrous through them on mounted either in front of the throttle body or at the throttle body. If you're going to do that, run port injection. And if you're thinking about running lots and lots of nitrous, that's probably not the intake that you're going to be running anyway. You're going to be picking something else that itself will make more power. But guys have tried it. And then the other way to do that, to get around that with a nitrous situation, and that factory style long runner intake manifold, is just run the nitrous through it. Don't run the fuel. The fuel really is the bigger of the two, is the bigger problem. So just ramp up the fuel through the injectors if you have the ability to do that, and then just run the gaseous nitrous through there, and it should probably work better. So we'll got our fingers crossed. So I'm excited about doing the carbureted stuff. And then as long as I can get, I can't remember what size I have a couple of turbos. I can't remember what the GT45 is. I just need to get something to neck that down to the size so I could put this same kind of elbow on here, basically, essentially, so that we can have the draw through carburetor. Because I want to run a 4-barrel or something on there. I don't have any side drafts or anything. I have one SU carburetor, but that's probably not going to get the job done on a turbo LS. So we have to run some sort of 4-barrel. And then if I have the flange to mount it, a 4500, then the world is your oyster. At West Tech, there's every carburetor imaginable. And the cool thing is we don't have to run a blow through carburetor or any sort of boosted reference carburetor. We could just run a carburetor, and it should work pretty well. So again, fingers crossed on that kind of testing. Keglodon should make an appearance soon. I agree. I actually, what I want to do, I need to go get that from the guy that I originally got the beer kegs from. And what I want to do is ship it. I want to ship it to Garrett and see if they'll run it on something, run it on Ruby or one of those cars. Cause it should run on something. It'd be cool. So we'll see. How's our poll doing? Oh, we're looking at 90%. So go ahead, make sure to go ahead and vote. Should I run that big tube? Should I run try to run a carburetor? Again, I'll show the photo. Should I try to run something like this on the dyno? Super snorkel ram. The elbow ram. This one's designed, looks like that's probably a 2-barrel Holly, I'm thinking. But you obviously could do it just as well with a 4-barrel. It just means, you got 2 more on one side or the other. So that shouldn't be too big of a problem. So, well, why not? Let's see. At least there's some carb guys trying to bring the LS in a different way. Yeah, that's it. You think it'll puddle inside? I think it'll puddle inside the truck intake manifold, almost for certain. But, how much of that is a problem? I don't know. Getaway, what's up? Draw through turbo. Yeah, I want to try to do, I haven't run one, so I want to try to, and I want to do one on I definitely want to I want to make my own crown version on that L28 that I have down there from Oliver. But I want to run a draw through, and I have an LS, so I might as well try it on an LS. What's the latest fuel nozzle types and carbs? They have a variety of different ones. We don't really have to worry about that too much, I don't think, on this kind of application. The thing that I like also is that we have gravity going for us on this to have it go down. So we have a little bit of help. Yes, with a wood carb spacer. Why would you need a wood carb spacer when you already have a composite intake manifold as your spacer? Burns, what's up? Burns is in the house. That's right. So our poll's at 90%. So we're going to so far take that as a yes. I've never seen a poll completely flip itself around. I've seen polls be 50-50 or whatever and dance around that area. And I've seen polls be all the way no, or nearly all the way no, and nearly all the way yes. I haven't seen them start out at like, oh, it's 90% yes, and then transition. Sometimes it gets knocked away a little bit, but never transition from like 90% yes to 90% no. We just don't have that kind of influx of people. Maybe I need to have some celebrities on here, and we'll get more people to come and watch. People don't want to listen to that Richard guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. James, your dog's talking to my dog? Yeah, we've got 3 of them here. Just had to take him into the vet. He's got stuff in his ears, so we got to clean him out and get the drops in them. Old school car guys would like to see a wood carb spacer. Good to be back. My son's walking again. He's back at school. Did he hurt himself? Didn't Ford's mid to late Mustang 4-cylinders have a draw-through carburetor? I don't think that the Mustangs did. I think that theirs were blow-through. I could be wrong. I know the Buicks had draw-through stuff. But I didn't think that the Mustangs were. I'd like to do a 4-cylinder Mustang turbo though, but the the SVO version. I want to show people mostly. I thought that we did this back with Dave and Tiny Avenger. I wanted to show a lot about what the intake manifolds do on those. There's seems to be. Oh, he got laid out by a horse. Drop kicked him in the head. So lots of medical and rehabilitation. Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that. That can be really bad. A horse is like, that's serious stuff. Pontiac 301 was a draw through. Yeah. Just make a full wood intake manifold. Got to keep them carbureted. Took some time for me to come around to fuel injection. My buddy bought a carb intake and MSD ignition for $500. That's reasonable. That is reasonable. And you can get a junkyard motor and put that on there, and away you go. It's dropping down a little bit, 87%. Who says no? There's always that like 13 or 14%. 305 truck, 4-speed with torque and 350 automatic and QJet, both ported heads, forward pistons, tight quench, blueprinted. What? I don't understand. What is that? Is there a question there, or is it a statement? Is there a power output? It's all good. Back on his feet. That's great. My priorities were with him, as they should be. It's good stuff. Glad he's okay up walking around. It's one of the nice things about being young. You bounce back. What's the main reason for wanting to convert to carb? Are you asking me about this? Is this about the photo that I posted? I'm not converting anything to carburetor. I'm just trying it. I just think it's cool. I'm not doing it because I think that carburetors are better than fuel injection. I don't get involved in any of that nonsense. And I'm not doing it because I have a motor that I want to run that will run with a carburetor. I'm just doing it because I think it would be cool to try and see if it will work. That's it. It's just a will it work kind of thing. It's a gee whiz. Orville and Wilbur Wright had no carb on their plane. They just dripped gas in the intake. Wow. Oh, Shadow Ops. It's still hot enough where you need AC, that's for sure. What donor EFI to look for at Pick and Pull? Enjoyed your CARB EFI video. We ran ours with the Holly. You can run it with the factory stuff though. I don't know if I remember someone mentioning getting better gas mileage with a 4-barrel carb. You're right. The gas mileage was worse with the 4-barrel carb. It's like with boost. It's because you're using the 4-barrel carb. Burns, you think doing it boosted would be the best way? So now you want a blow through carb in front of the factory EFI manifold? Oh, shadow ops. You swap the relays. That's good. That's a good test procedure. Just start swapping one thing over for the other and see which one is good or bad. It's a good way to find stuff out. We do that with plugs and wires and coil packs and things like that. That way I'm not going to go buy a new one just to see if it's working. I answered no, because EFI manifolds don't flow like wet manifolds. Air charge dispersion and fuel dropout, I think, would become the issue. Carbs and EFI have their places. I agree. You can do things with port EFI. We got to be specific about that because there are different kinds of EFI, but you can do things where on intake manifold design where you're not flowing fuel, but that's really why we would want to do it. We know that it's the wrong thing to do, and that's exactly why we want to try it. Set the carb at lower 40 jets and fill in with EFI. Yeah, I'm not going to run EFI also. I'm just going to try to run it with a carburetor. I'm interested to see what the truck manifold does, the fuel air. Although Burns, could go to, we could try that if it's not working with the carburetor. If it's not working, the carburetor has a distribution problem. It'd be hard to, unless I had 802s on it, to figure out where the distribution problem was and then try to individual cylinder tune around a dumb idea. You should run an M122 on an LS with the draw-through carb. I wanted to run a draw-through carb on the 3800, and I still might on the M90. Yes, it is a fancy intake adapter, isn't it? Setup with a 2-barrel would be excellent for dual carb inline 6-cylinder fuel distribution. Yeah, it's more of, and unfortunately the last one was like this, more of a go, no-go kind of thing. We know we can make fuel injection work, and we know we could make carburation work with a different manifold, but it passed at least on the Trailblazer. The clutch won't engage if the R134A is low. Oh, okay. So the clutch switch is taking a sensor reading from the pressure sensor, and a AMR 500 draw through. I don't know what kind of carburetor we put on that. A lawnmower carburetor or something. What year intake we're talking about? This is an early truck, so it's going to be a 3-bolt. Four-barrel swap on my 305 definitely made a good difference. It's pretty rich still. I guess I can get a little more out of it. Yeah, it should have. A 2-barrel on there going to a 4-barrel would make a big difference. Or even going from a tune port to a 4-barrel, you're going to get more power on top with that. But if you went from a 2-barrel to a 4-barrel, like I said, that should be 30 horsepower or something. Lawnmower carburetor for the AMR. Aaron, you'll be happy to know I was looking at Dodge 360 stuff today. Did my custom 2.5-inch stainless exhaust with a MagnaFlow muffler on my Cruise over the weekend. It'd be interesting to put an AMR on it and have the turbo blow through it. Yeah, I don't know that Does your Cruise, what size motor is the Cruise? Is it a 1.4? And if it's a turbo, is it 150 horsepower or something? Christmas this year, I'd like to see Richard do a turbo Magnum. I'm actually going to work on the turbo Magnum when I go down there this time. It needs springs and a cam, and then a turbo. Do you know what playlist your drivetrain loss video is in? Yeah, it's in LS. It should be an LSNA. What spec cam do you want? I'm just going to put a shelf comp cam in it. And then when I go down, I'm going to take the head apart and figure out what kind of springs I need and just get springs for it. I don't have any ported heads for it, but it'll be enough. People will be happy enough if I just put a cam in it and run it with a Kager manifold and then put boost on it with a Kager manifold. The 4-barrel manifold definitely makes more power if we put the, an RPM. I think we ran an RPM on the other one. Magnum V8, yeah, a 360 Magnum, not a Hemi powered one. Just get the Hughes 1199 kit for springs. What size turbo for a mile 454 street strip motor, 6 to 8 pounds of boost, not going to run a ton of RPM? I still think I would go with an S475 on that with a 454. I don't know how much power is the thing making to begin with. A GT45 would be really responsive, but you could do something in between those two, I think. Makes 450. Yeah, so you're going to want an S475 then. Because that's still going to be making fairly good power. That's still going to be making, 600-700, even at low boost. Don't forget the CFM test. Yeah, I don't know if I have two motors like that. I'm trying to think. If I put together the LS, and the LS makes over 500, the big block makes over 500 too. So those would be two that we could do that with. Does anybody have any advice for JM about running a factory fuel injection from the wrecking yard on his small block Chevy? He's got a 305. Are you having to control the 4L60 as well? Because if you do that, I don't know do you have to use if you have to convert to LS stuff, then you'd have to go to a coil and plug and stuff, and I think that'd be more problematic. Yeah, you're not the big block guy. You're not running the 454 with throttle body injection, right? Yeah, 94 is throttle body injection. What do you think is the max NA horsepower on non-ported 799 heads? It would depend on what you mean by maximum horsepower. There isn't a ceiling for that. So to give you an idea, on a 302 stock E7TE heads, they made about 300 horsepower when we had a good motor that had a cam and intake manifold and all that stuff on it. But we got that number up to 350 when we ran those same heads on a 347. And then we got that number up to 385 when we ran it on a big stroker. So the more draw that you have on those heads, the more they'll flow. So even though we have a flow rate, we're basing the power output based on a flow rate from a flow bench. If you have a really, really big motor drawing on them, you can make a little bit more power. I mean, ultimately, they're going to be limited, but those heads flow 240 or something, 706, 245 or 250 or something. So, I think when we ran them on a cam, the 6-liter, they were very low 500s. I'd run TBI on a carb manifold and still have linkage for the 4L60. We've done that with an adapter. Do you have any of the 302s that you did all those head tests with for a comparison to something? No, I don't. I have a 302, but not any of the ones that we ran any of that testing on. Found a Gen 6 454. It's just a short block. They're wanting 454. Is it worth it? I don't know. That's only you can decide that. I think a complete motor is about that. Where we get ours, it's 500 or something. So see, aftermarket's the only decent thing for a 305. For a tune port, I agree. Did you see the 4-valve V10 is what the 4-valve V10 is going in? I didn't see that, but did they get it running yet? My name represents Turbo Pain, not the rapper. Modular power, that's right. Watch your 317 head video and maybe wonder if you can go too big on the head. So many people buy the biggest heads possible. Do you think it's losing power? Do I think that any of these were losing power with the 317 head? They were losing power because the 317 head doesn't make as much power as other heads, but not because it's big. The only thing that's big about the 317 that's hurting it is the combustion chamber, but not the port volume or anything, because it actually has the same intake port and I think exhaust port as the 799 head, which makes more power. The thing that doesn't have is it doesn't have the chamber. It doesn't have the same size or the same design chamber as the 799 243 head. What upgrade for towing would you recommend for a 6-liter Gen 3? Tune headers. I don't know what your converter is, but you could put a mild cam in it maybe. It's going into a new generation Continental. On the recent 317 head video, what does the stock head's deck thickness problem mean? Well, if you look at where the deck is, where is the flat part of the head that bolts to the block, that mates to the block. So the thickness of that deck, it's not thick enough for really, really high cylinder pressures. And so what happens is the deck will distort, it will move around, and it will allow you to blow gaskets or blow sometimes parts of the head out. So the aftermarket heads have a much thicker deck, so they're sturdier, and so they'll hold more cylinder pressure. And that's what I was talking about in the conversation about the deck thickness for the 317 head or any of the factory ones, because they're basically all problematic there. Admiral, I told them that I would run it, or I told them that I would test it if they got it running and it worked. What I don't want to do is I don't want to get it to the dyno and have to solve all the problems. I don't have time to do that. It has to be actually running and working and ready to test, and then I could do that. Richard, do you see Vortec heads at the yards? Yeah, if you're talking about Vortec small block Chevy heads, there are Vortec small block Chevys there. Richard, I have a question for you. I'm building a 302 for an old 63 F100 using a 94 Explorer distributorless EFI motor with Holley standalone, Flowtech 185 heads. What's the best torque cam? Something small like the 264 probably is what I would go with. I don't go to the smaller numbers on those very often, but I think that they have a 258 or something. Yeah, they have a 258, a 264, a 270, another two. What is this other two? Oh, the other 258 is more lift. So yeah, a 258 or a 264 should be a good torque cam. Honestly, we ran the 266 and that worked out pretty good. That's a 216, 224. But a 212, 218 or a 208, 216 is a pretty good, torquey kind of cam. So would you consider the average to be on LS heads before you have problems with boost levels? Are you talking about the power output? I think guys run 1,000 horsepower stuff a lot. And we made pulls that were 1,500 horsepower or 1,400 horsepower. But I don't know that lives at the track for repeated runs. Has anyone ever seen this? I have a 4-barrel elbow connection from Offenhauser cross ram intake that worked wonders to relocate the carburetor. 4-barrel elbow connection from an Offenhauser cross ram. You need to send us a picture. Las Vegas, Nevada. I used to live in Henderson, and my shop was in Vegas. Have you ever run a carb swap on a 90s LT1? Yes, I have videos up on that. We ran the GM 4-barrel on it. And in fact, we ran one, I think, on a stock one. I know that we ran it on, pretty sure we ran it on an LT1. I know that I ran it on the L99, which is the 4.3 liter V8. What's the best cam for a 2-cylinder Fiat 500? I don't know that you're going to have a whole bunch of those to choose from, right? It's going to be an A-Barth cam, right? Is that the only people that make one? '87, '88, 95 GMT 400 Chevy, GMC 305, 350, 455 might be too big for that. How's our poll doing? 82%. Offenhauser 5494. So we can take a look at that. Let's see. What was it? Offenhauser. So he killed me and took it back? $54.99. Oh, I see. $54.97. Yeah, to move the carburetor over there. Okay, I see what that is. I see it. I see it. Let's see here. Okay. Come back to Vegas. No, thank you. Let me see. Torque cam, you mean lower RPM torque, relatively speaking. If I don't watch it, everyone's going to be saying small cams make more torque than bigger cams. Yeah, that's not the case. Not more, just in a different RPM range. $54.97. Yeah, I saw that. I saw what you're talking about. It's like offset mounting the carburetor. Richard, is it true if nitrous is used prior to a roots blower, the nitrous shot will have a larger shot effect than advertised? Why would that be the case? The nitrous should have a cooling effect on the blower, which I think is going to be beneficial. And maybe that's part of it. You have an awesome job. Thanks for the free knowledge. Happy to help. That's why it's outlawed in some of the series. It will just cool the blower some. It definitely does that, and so do the other things. The fuel has a cooling effect. E85, if you run that, obviously as a E85 carburetors on top of the blower. When Freiberger did his, and I've done that a couple of times, it definitely helps. Nitrous is used like a direct injection. The phase change would cool the heated blown air down. Direct injection, though, would take place in the combustion chamber. So they're talking about injecting it before the supercharger. Yeah, all fuel will definitely have a cooling effect. Air induction will have very little cooling effect, but it's better to have cold ambient air going into the carburetors in this case than underhood air. On a blower, you don't have to worry about that because that's going to be sticking out of the hood anyways. I think nitrous before and after the blower is the next video. I'm trying to think what I'd be running a blower on. Maybe the 3800 we could do that on. It can also backfire. Yeah, that's not good. I need to see. So what size are we thinking? Does anybody have a GT45 turbo handy that they can measure the inlet going into the compressor? If you do a 3800, can you show the intake temps with nitrous? Yeah, nitrous doesn't cool very much. I know that people think it cools a lot, but it actually doesn't. It might cool more on a 3800 because the 3800 won't be processing very much hot air. So it's, even though nitrous is very, very cold, like when I did the testing using nitrous as the intercooler on the turbocharged LS, it only changed the charge temperature by about 30 degrees. It wasn't very much. We have negative 159 degrees or so, I think is where I think that's a boiling point. But you don't have very much of it. And you have 800 horsepower in this case worth of hot turbo air, and then you have 100 horsepower or whatever your shot is worth of very, very cold air. But when you get those two together, the amount of charge cooling is not very much. People are telling me the shot itself, if I entered prior to the blower, would cause the shot to act bigger. So like a 50 shot with results of 75 or 100 shot. I can't remember testing stuff before. I'm trying to think. Well, no, I did one on a Procharger deal on a modular Ford. Again, we're using the nitrous as the intercooler, but we injected it after the blower, though, like right after the blower. I have a knockoff laying around. It is 4-inch intake and a 2.5-inch out. So is the I need to cover the inlet. So is the opening of the inlet is 4? Because if it's 4 inches, I have that already. That would be easy. Did GM release the Buick Series 3 3800 to fix the intake oil hydrolock issue? I didn't know that those are having a problem hydrolocking. Rex, what's up? Yeah, Boost, I don't think that that's going to happen. But at least I haven't seen that happen. I've seen that happen on turbo applications, but whenever we've run it on a turbo application, it made more power, but it also raised the boost, which makes more power. The opening is 3.5-inch. So now I don't want the opening in just the impeller. I need the opening because doesn't the GT45 have like the surge slots around it? And then isn't there a bigger opening on top of that? I can answer my own question here because I can look at a photo of that. I have lots and lots of photos of GT45 turbos. Turbo, $163 turbo. That sounds like me. Yes. So that's a GT45 turbo. So the GT45 turbo has that's probably a 70 millimeter wheel, something like that, 69 millimeter. Then it has the opening. Then it has the compressor surge openings on the outside of that. So what I need to know is what is the outside diameter of that flange, of the big part of that flange. Unless somebody has already given me that. Series 2 either had a fire or hydrolock. The intake manifolds, I heard that the composite intake manifolds on the NA motors, not on the supercharged motors, that those were prone to heating and warping and then subsequently leaking. So that might be the hydrolock problem that you're talking about. We build our diesels with 6+ feet of after turbo piping, spraying water right after the turbo. Yeah, we were just trying to get to a number. Nitrous helped us do that. Jamie, thank you very much. Seen LS engines blow the head gaskets on the exhaust side between the head bolts, melting the head. Section cut ahead, and there's only a tiny coolant passage in that area. Folks are running external cooling lines. On the cylinder heads, they are? On the factory heads? It's not hydrolocking from heat. The plastic manifolds are heated up, and then they deform, and then they lose their seal. And the part of the seal that they're in is water, and then the water gets into the motor. 4.5 inches. Okay, that's no, not the T4 flange. The opening into the compressor. The LS uses crossover steam pipes. Seen 2 sets of 799 heads with the same thing happen. Was there a video done for the 4-barrel elbow ram? No, I didn't do a video on it because it didn't work, unfortunately. And mine was not an elbow like that. Mine was I think that mine was a CARB bonnet flipped over with a carburetor adapter put on top of that. I can't remember if we welded that on there or taped it or sealed it somehow. You know, it was it was super Richie in its finest. So okay, 4.5 inches. So I should have some 4.5 inch tubing that would make that work, and then we could reduce that down to, I don't know, maybe I have a 4.5 inch bend. Probably be similar to putting a carb on an L31 intake manifold. I never tried that. Although I would like to try, somebody was telling me that you can change the poppet valves or injectors on those for regular injectors in the factory manifold, which that would be kind of cool. Doesn't reducing the tubing increase the boost pressure? No, not on the inlet side. It won't do that. If it did anything, it would do the opposite of that. But we don't have a restriction going into the turbo, not at the flow and power level that we're going to be testing at. Richard does not have any experience adding boost to a 4-liter Jeep engine. I've never done anything with those. Dan, elbow pasta is exactly the same thing. We're basically looking at that. Yes to the marine intake. No, they weren't talking about the marine intake. They were talking about the regular car intake manifold. Welcome to my make this 5-inch pipe fit. Yeah, and I'm not afraid of cutting and splicing and welding and doing whatever we have to do. You know, you gotta make it work. But I think we have some reducers that will make it work. Man, we have come down quite a bit. 78% are saying yes, but 22% are saying no. How do you not want to put this? How do you not want to see this like actually happen? See, this is what I'm talking about right here. Yeah. How do you not want to see that in all its glory? Something like that. A 2-barrel would work. We have a 500 CFM 2-barrel. Geez, even if you notice, it even has plugs in the injector holes. I just put injectors in there, but all that works. %. Myrrh. There's a company that makes bigger injectors to the spider with the EFI injectors, but it's still going to have that giant spider and the lines in there. If anything, there's wires there now. Don't those VTEC Honda guys have 5-inch exhaust pipes? Wow, shots fired. It's not the pipe, it's just the tip. Got to go do the maintenance. 502 barrel, Holly Circle Track racing carb. That's right, 4412. And now they have the XP version of that, which is pretty cool. I have one of those. People are pumping water into fittings just below the exhaust port on the LS heads. Pay attention to the head gasket water holes. Cut an LS head apart and you'll see where there's very little coolant flow. Kyle, if you have a picture of that, send me a picture of it. Program the injectors to even out the mixture in each cylinder. Yeah, we could do that, but you got to have 802s on it to make that work. And really, when you're looking at what we're talking about, it's really not really worth that. Richard, aren't you the 51% vote for these polls? I don't get to vote. That's the thing. I would vote. I'd imagine fuel distribution might be problematic. Yes, I actually found a 4 3/4 to 5-inch intake 90-degree reducer. Oh, that's cool. That's the problem with some of those, like the silicone adapters, is that they say 4-inch to 3.5-inch. But a lot of times that's the outside diameter measurement of the coupler itself. You're like, yeah, but I don't need that. I need it to go over a 4-inch pipe or a throttle body and then go over a 3.5-inch pipe. And sometimes they won't do that, especially if you have a bead or something on it. It drives me nuts. They do that with a lot of the low dollar clamps are like that too. Fits a 4-inch tube. That's good. But nobody's ever clamping a 4-inch tube. They're always clamping a silicone coupler to a tube. So it's got to be more than a 4-inch. All right, Murr. We use one of the 2-barrel Hollies with annual discharge nozzles for open shows. Cool. Did you guys notice a difference? Obviously, you wouldn't have done it if you didn't notice a difference on that. Okay, Plumber, I want to go back and see if you were saying something before this discussion that you're starting on right now. I'll tell you why. Boost numbers don't mean crap. Steve Brule, interesting spelling. Prove that you can increase power with lower boost. I think intake temps are the key to building power at lower boost. Okay. Actually, if you take a supercharger and you run it, and then you put cylinder heads on your combination or head camshaft or intake manifold, and it improves the NA power, what will happen is the power will go up and the boost will come down. That works. But the argument from blower people will be, yeah, but now if we spun the blower faster and raised the boost, it would make more power. So boost is an indicator. How can we send you pictures of what we're working on? You can send it to my email address. Remember me and someone welding a 4-barrel carb mount onto an old TPI setup? Yeah, I remember that. I think I have that sitting around still. So somebody wants to try that somewhere. Richard here has non-boosted power combos for 48 to 50, 62 for 400, 500, 600. My engine would use a large cam. Ever looking at running a VG turbo like a Nissan VG? Or do you want a variable vane turbo or something like that? I have a 5.3 turbo 400 ready, but thought it would be interesting to see what the 4-liter would do first. The trick that made the most difference with the 4412s was leaving the mounting bolts loose. So wide on the throttle, the carb tip back. You could run richer jets to compensate for the air leak. Yeah, anything that you could do to get more air in there. I remember trying things like PCV pipe or PCV lines and stuff. There were openings in the manifold, basically. Pressure is created by resistance to flow. We all get that. Oddly enough, I've seen intercooled and non-intercooled diesel with the same size turbo and made within 70 horsepower of each other, but the intercooled one made 600 plus foot-pounds more torque. That's a lot. I'm with whoever is it Plumber? Yeah, saying a cooler intake charge is always better. That's why I always recommend that people put intercoolers on everything. Put them on blow-through carbureted applications. Put them on E85. Put them on methanol. But sometimes the methanol guys don't want to do that because of the weight. Variable geometry turbos, yeah. The T4 cars had that on the 2.2 and 2.5 stuff. Like Toyota did for the Rally Celica. That was the best cheating ever. Yep, and that's why you gave up. Have more back pressure than boost always. You don't always have to have more back pressure than boost pressure. Most applications do, but like our Bonneville car didn't have that. We had less back pressure than boost pressure. You can Greaseland. You can see the elbow working on the Greaseland YouTube channel. So if you guys want to see, is it this elbow? Are you the one that sent me this? If you did, thank you very much. That's why a 2.2 at 1 bar makes less power than NA. Any GM LV1 stuff coming up? I have videos on the LV3. Well, it probably was an LV1. They're the same. So I have some of those videos up. My 4-liter has an Edelbrock head modified. What 4-liter has an Edelbrock head? Is that the Jeep one? Richard, have you ever worked with sequential turbos? Only factory ones. Only like the Mazda and the Toyotas, but not. I haven't ever built any. E85 injection on 87 to 93 might help, or very light nitrous. VG turbos make a difference in lag. They can. A variable geometry turbo can help a lot. It can make the turbo, have a broader range, let's say. The problem is that given what the environment that a turbo is working in, it gets like a bunch of stuff on it and stops working very well. Please give me a good timing setting for idle on a Holley Terminator. For what application is it? I mean, our motors will idle at 10 degrees and they'll also idle at 40 degrees. So the idle timing is not, at least on the dyno, they will. When intercooling air intake, is there a temp of intake charge that becomes diminishing returns? It's beyond what you would be able to make it at. To give you an idea, the guys with the compressed air supercharging have negative temperatures. They have below 0 temperatures going into the intake tract. And so because they do that, they're able to double the power output at like 7 or 8 pounds of boost. Because they have lots and lots of oxygen molecules. There's also no parasitic loss at all from their system. All of the compression and everything that was done for their cylinders was done off-site of the motor, essentially. And it's very, very cold going in. So they're able to get very, very impressive gains. 20 degrees isn't working. There's something that's going on. A motor should idle at, like I said, it has a big swing of, it may not want to start very well with lots of idle timing, but once it's idling, it will idle fine. We could swing the timing 20 or 30 degrees once the motor's running without any problem at all. Love that Nissan did a micro. Yeah, one of their Kai class cars, right, was turbocharged and supercharged. And obviously we all love the Lancia Delta. Hard pressed to get the air temp below freezing. Yeah, they were only able to do that because they had compressed air. 150 pounds of boost, 1,000 horsepower. So what is that? 2,500 foot-pounds or something? Maybe if you fill them up, they'll run in one. Let's see. Lancia Scorpion. I like the way those look. I don't know how good the motor is, but I think that they're pretty cool looking. Want to run an AC compressor on the engine? Yep, the Dodge guys do that. Single 988853. Driving it today, registered tomorrow. Oh, the Lancia, cool. Those are very cool looking. On the Series 3 plastic, the EGR would burn a hole in it and cause all kinds of funny problems when put an intake on and fix 5 of them because of that. Water cools faster than air. Needs a turbo. Michael, thank you very much. Emailed you a pic of the cut LS3 head with the offending water package. Thanks, Kyle. Take some pics of my own, but I cut them up. Cool. Later on at the track, the block split and the head came off. With the block deck surface still attached. So it was doing its job. You had good head studs, I guess. Only broken gas blocks. A diesel block must take a ton of pressure to fail. Yep. Can you use a Mustang GT supercharger? What Mustang GT had a supercharger on it? The GT 500? I bet I could design a chiller intake charge that requires running antifreeze in the loop charge to cool the air intake as well as the fuel loop. Think of the free power at low boost. The Demon is using the AC system for that. Scary thing here, a guy by me that runs a turbocharged Corvair flat 6 and a Spiper Cub. That's an awful lot of trust on a motor that I probably wouldn't trust to drive across the United States. Cobra's GT500s. Yeah, the GT that I know of never had a factory supercharger on it. LS7 lifters are direct replacement for LS1 lifters. I don't know. You're going to need to measure the distance from the plunger down to the roller. So you're going to have to do some math there because you're going to have to do the drop from the upper ledge. Just measure the whole lifter and then measure the drop from that edge down to the cup and see that, just verify that they're the same. Somebody's been asking me that, and I keep meaning to get an actual LS7 lifter to measure those. When you're talking about timing, is it the cam timing or the ignition timing? The thing that I've been talking about tonight to somebody, I don't know if it was you, was ignition timing. I don't vary the cam timing on the computer, not on a 3800 because it doesn't have a VVT cam in it. But on other applications where it does, some of the LS stuff, some of the LT stuff, the Coyote, those all have variable cam that you can adjust on the computer. Over 6s had a goofy belt. Yeah, it would. Didn't it do like a 90? Can You do the marine intake video. I have a 98 Tahoe I want to do. I was thinking of doing the whole Holley intake and wiring. I've never messed with any two-stroke V8s. No, I've never run any on the engine dyno. I think I've only seen 1 or 2 of those. Steven is using an interchiller, but how much gain could be gained if you get chill air fuel way below freezing? Well, definitely let me know what happens if you're able to do it. I'd like to see some temperature changes. Turbo Corvairs. Those cars are probably money by now, I would imagine. I'll bet you. The Corvair was goofy, but that's a charm. I agree. But it's not that if you had a whole bunch of cars outside and you're like, you know what, I need to drive from California to New York and I got to go right now. The Corvair would not really be tops on the list. I have an old Kenny Bell 2.1. 2.1 would definitely do 600 wheel horsepower, yeah. Would you use on a 4.8 or 6 liter on top of a high ramp? You definitely could. And then if you did it on a high ram, does it still have the provision for the Terminator Cobra air to water intercooler on it? Because you definitely want some sort of intercooler core into there. I know, like, dang YouTubers, these guys are problematic. We got 1 more minute. We got to close our outer poll. 79%, our shrinking poll. Richard, have you ever tried hydrogen peroxide in a water injection system? I have not. Way back when we used isopropyl alcohol and dry ice. I remember Kenny Bell doing that stuff. It's a little bit dangerous though, right? Mr. Ramirez, welcome. Got a 468 with 781, 13.5 to 1 compression. I'm going to use it as a test mill. Cool. Let me know what it does. Driving across country is when you need an Audi or an RS6. Yeah, that'd be good. Certainly not a van. As much as I like them, not a 70 or 71 Camaro. Stopped by Matt's shop on my way to Salt Lake from LA. Good people. Hydrogen peroxide would definitely disinfect the engine parts, right? I always had a problem with the ISO leaking. Yeah, it seems really thin, and you don't want it to catch on fire. 2.1 Kenny Bell actually came with a Dodge Magnum kit I bought. Really wondering if it's better suited to a smaller or larger LS. I can ask Mark and Mahovitz what that 2.1 will support. I'm trying to remember, because that's a pretty old school one. Everything else now is quite a bit bigger than that. But I'm thinking 600 wheel horsepower. I think it would definitely do that. Drove a 67 Corvair that was NA. It ran great. Not enough power to get out of its own way. My mom used to drive one. She had one when I was little. Upgrading to VMP, triple pass, dual fan heat exchanger on my Roush. Boost, I don't know that I could tell by looking at it. I would have to just get information from people to find out, And hopefully the information that I got from people would be people that actually have like test data to see what the change in boost pressure is across the core and what the change in temperature is across the core, and hopefully at a variety of different like power and boost levels. Dry ice in a fuel can. Yeah, you can do that. I think that's how, when they did the testing at West Tech with Engine Masters on their carbureted combination, I think that's how they did their fuel cooling. Special agent throwing out the chemistry jokes. And on that note, it is time to go. See how fast this goes when everybody's having fun, when we're looking at crazy like snorkel rams. But I will be back tomorrow. Guys, have a good night.